with stuff like info dumping, being someone with anxiety, you always have to test the waters on it. So it's like you might bring something up to where whenever they ask, like, oh, what are you into? Like my first thing is always Lord of the Rings, fantasy. I really love reading. I really like Tolkien. It wasn't like, immediately like, oh, did you know the Witch King of Angmar, XYZ?
Hi everyone, I'm Alex, and I help shy, introverted nerds get over their fears and anxieties to find their player 2. Today I bring you a Kaia, a nerd who found her player 2, and we're going to talk about how they ended up together. The idea is to address some of your questions, dispel some myths, and hear about the many different ways that nerds can find real relationships. Kaia, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So, I know why I consider you a nerd. You're so knowledgeable, but I would like you to describe in your words, why do you consider yourself a nerd?
Well, I mean, if you look behind me, that kind of explains it. Well, I mean, obviously my hyperfixation is Lord of the Rings. I like to think that I'm very knowledgeable about it to the point where I do make content creation about it. But Lord of the Rings isn't the only thing I'm into. I also try to play D&D when I can. Like, I used to be into Harry Potter before that kind of went down the drain. But mainly it's just like, all types of fantasy books, but absolutely mainly Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. So for anyone who has not seen your content, Kaia's content is amazing. She's such a fountain of knowledge. Every time I watch a video, I'm like, I had no idea about any of that. Personally, I have no memory of anything. I can't tell you one single name apart from the main ones. But every time I watch your videos, I'm like, this is amazing. So for everyone watching, I'm going to have all your links in the description anyways. So
awesome.
Let's get into the main topic. How did you meet your partner? Where does your story start?
Oh, that's my favorite thing to talk about. So I was working, well, I still work in this little electronic repair shop. And my boss had brought in, I don't know if you know what Garmin is, but it's like, it's kind of like another electronic company. They make all types of different electronics like watches, dog hunting stuff, marine audio, stuff like that, GPSs. And we were starting to sell the outdoor dog hunting stuff. And she was our sales rep. So she comes in one day and I'm just like, sitting at the front counter at the little computer. And she is just like, I'm looking for Dave Gorby. And I look up and speechless,
Okay.
fell in love that moment. And so she is in the back talking to my boss. And I am just looking at her every 5 seconds, but I'm scared to look at her for more than 5 seconds because I'm just like, holy shit, what if she looks at me? And then as soon as she leaves, I turn to my coworker and I'm like, that is the woman I'm going to marry. I'm going to marry that woman. And then sure enough, a year later, we bought a house together. And then a year after that, we got engaged.
Do you know what she thought about you when that happened? Like when you met the first time?
I like to ask her. And, sometimes I forget, but I know that whenever she came in, she said that, wow, she obviously, thought I was attractive. But it was that time we were both wearing masks, couldn't fully see our faces, but, she thought I looked pretty. And I like to think I looked pretty that day.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Cool. So were you afraid of looking because you're in a work environment, or just being shy of what if she sees me looking? What was that fear about?
Oh, it's just now before it was just me thinking it was my social anxiety. Okay. But then, once therapy happened, you learn more about yourself and through neurodivergence on the internet and whatever. And then I just realized that she made me nervous, and the idea of talking to her just scared the shit out of me, because what if she's cooler than me? What if she thinks I'm a freaking weirdo? What if I am just a little too unhinged for her? And then it turns out we were on the same wavelength, so worked out.
I think that's most people's fear, right? It's like, what if I'm not good enough? right? Like, what if I get rejected?
Yeah.
That's always a thing, right? It's like, what if they don't like me for being me? Then should I be someone else so that they like me? But then
and that's kind of how it was for a while, because like, obviously with all the nerdy stuff, I kind of kept it to myself. I never, like, how some neurodivergents kind of like info dump as a way of like flirting or whatever. I held that in so hard.
With her or in general, like before her?
Well, both.
Okay.
But like with her, I didn't want to like scare her off by just droning on and on and on about Lord of the Rings. And then as her and I got to know each other, I realized that she's a freaking nerd too.
Good.
So it worked out so great. So now I info dump to her about Lord of the Rings, and she info dumps to me about Star Wars.
Perfect. You can both learn something.
Yeah.
So, okay. So she went to your office. You saw her. She left. You're like, I'm going to marry her. What happens then?
So the way that we would communicate with our sales rep is either through email or through text. And she has a work phone, obviously. And every time my boss would call her to ask a question or whatever, I would always be like, hey, tell Celania I said hi. And then one day he was like, well, why don't you text her? And I'm like, I'm not going to fucking do that. Well, are you crazy? And so then I did. And for a while, for that whole day, we were just talking about work stuff. And then the conversation kept going, and then it hasn't stopped.
What did you text her? Like, did you ask her something about work or?
Yeah, so it was something work related. Mm-hmm. And then after all the work related questions, we went on to making fun of my boss. And then
that's a good way to bond.
It was great. And then after that, the conversation just kind of didn't stop. And even now, whenever she goes on work trips, like we're just texting all the time.
Right. So you mentioned on Threads, and that's why I invited you to the podcast, that like you were even afraid of texting her, right?
Yes.
Like what did you think was going to happen? Like what was keeping you back, and how did you decide to actually text her? Because somebody has to make the first step, right?
Yeah.
Somebody has to take the first step.
I feel like it's just the basic. When you're super into someone, obviously, if they make your heart race like that, and you get all excited, or like, you kind of try to make it so your hopes don't get up, but they do anyway, and you text them, and like either don't get a response back, which is better than them texting you once and then not texting you after that. But then there's oh my God, they texted you back. And then if you're like me and have severe anxiety, it's like, well, what the hell do I text back now? Do I want to keep the conversation going? Do I push the conversation? Will she think it's weird if I continue to keep trying to talk to her? Will she be like, why is this weirdo trying to talk to me outside of work stuff? So, because at this point, I had only met her. I only knew her first name. I didn't know if she had a girlfriend. I didn't know if she had a boyfriend. I didn't know if she even, what way her door swung.
Yep.
So it was just the whole, what if I text her and she does the one message response, and then I try to be funny back to keep the conversation going, and she just dry, nothing.
And what if?
Exactly. And what if it keeps going?
Yeah.
But that's just, that what if is so scary.
Yeah.
It's so scary, and it puts your heart in like a noose.
Yeah. I think it's like putting so much expectations on it, right? It's like, this one has to work. This one has to be the one. And to make matters worse, like when you don't know someone well, and this happens mainly with dating apps, right? When you don't know someone well, you just fill the gaps with, if you like them, with great things. If you don't like them, with awful things.
Yeah.
Right? And if you really like them, if you're going to marry them, then you're like, this is the person. She's absolutely amazing. I've only seen her once. Didn't have a conversation. But
not at all. I didn't even, like, I looked at her and I said, hi. And then that was it. That wasn't even the conversation. I was so confident that I was like, that's the girl I'm going to marry. And sure enough.
And when you texted her, what was it that, like, it was something work related? Was it just like, hey, like whatever you asked for is here, something like that? And how?
Oh no, so it was, I forget what the actual question was. It was related to like a sale that was going on with one of the devices we were selling. And I had made a joke being like, oh, my boss is too busy doing something. I remember I had made a joke out of it because that's just what I do when I get nervous. I make people laugh. And
Chandler.
yeah. And so I was like, oh God, I hope this fucking lands. And so, I mean, I got she responded and then I got the haha and I was like, worked. And then she made a joke back about him and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I got my foot in the door.
So it was straight up with a joke. Like it wasn't like, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to be super formal because this is work and then I'm going to start building up. It was like straight up joke, see if it lands.
Not. No, because the way that I do it, I don't want to say like, professional situations, but because of the way my anxiety is, I am very quick to try and break the ice to make me less anxious. So what my first thing is that if I can make them laugh, then they'll be able to tolerate me better.
To tolerate me.
Yeah. So I never go in with it black and white. It's just full rainbow immediately.
Yeah.
Just to make sure, like, let's test the waters on how they'll be able to take my personality. If they don't laugh, I'll dial it back. If they do, I'm in.
Yeah. And, it's, I don't know why. I was just thinking about this today, actually. Not everybody will like you, and that's fine.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
I had a boss many years ago, over like 10 years ago. She used to tell me, Alex, don't tell jokes because they make you look bad. Your jokes are bad. I know my jokes are bad. They're my dad's jokes or style of jokes, but I love them. And they're not for everybody, but it's just me. And I'm from Argentina. I was in Canada, so like different sense of humor and everything. But at one point we were working with like a very well-known figure. And I'm a sound engineer by trade. And we're doing a live show, and I just made a joke. And this guy turns around, like completely serious, like deadpan. And I'm like, oh shit, I fucked up. And he looks at me, he's like, you're funny. Come on tour with me. And I'm like, oh, it landed. Okay, good, I'm safe. And
that's terrifying.
Yeah. He stayed there for like a few days. And so then when he was leaving, I went to greet him to say goodbye. And he was talking to my boss. And I go and I'm like, hey, I just want to say like, pleasure meeting you, blah, blah. And he puts his hand on my shoulder and tells to my boss, he says, he's a really funny guy. I love him. And leaves. And my boss looks at me. She's like, okay, some people might like your humor.
Oh my God. See, my boss is kind of that way now because the relationship that I have with my boss is like, we're friends, but he doesn't understand the way that some people can receive humor and whatnot. So he thinks that people are very black and white. So whenever I joke around with him around customers, he gets so angry because he's just like, they don't know your sense of humor like I do. And I'm like, I promise you, they do. Because I do it with them when you're not here. They understand it. I promise. Yeah. And if they don't, you'll hear about it.
Yeah.
Which he has before. So
yeah, and I think, there's a fine line between only telling jokes and having a sense of humor. I saw someone's, I think, Bumble chat or Tinder or something. It was from Reddit. The question was, why is she not like responding or like asking questions and stuff? This guy was like, joke, 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 joke. I'm like, dude, like you're not asking anything, you're not saying anything meaningful. So like there's a balance in that, right? Yeah. But when you're first texting someone, seeing if they have your sense of humor could be a great thing, right? And if they don't, then right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're gonna be like, I'm gonna marry her, and then she didn't get that joke, or this one, or the other. It's like, well, Might not work.
That'll give you the ick real quick if they don't get your sense of humor.
Yeah. And it's not right or wrong. It's just not your sense of humor. That's it.
It's just different.
Yeah. So you texted a joke. She joked back. How, I'm guessing like you started like chatting about something else and then it started getting more personal. At what point did it, like, did you ask for a date? Did she ask for a date? Was it clear there was a date? How did that play out?
So neither of us really asked each other out on a date. My boss kind of forced it because
Tell me more.
I would be like, her and I would be texting on and off whenever we could because, obviously we were working and whatnot. And my boss would see, and obviously I had this stupid fucking smile on my face, and they would make fun of me at work. And then my boss was always just like, well, why don't you ask her out on a date? And I'm like, why the hell would I do that? Then we'll have to talk in person, and then she'll see me, she'll look at me, then I'll have to actually come up with conversations and not have time to think about it and text them back. And then he was just like, okay, well, maybe I'll help you out the next time she comes in for a visit. And so when she did come in for like a rep visit or whatever, my boss set it up to where we went out to this restaurant down the street.
How did he set up like the dinner? Was it supposed to be like it's gonna be the three of us, or you guys have to meet for work? Like how?
Yeah. He was like, well, after work, let's all go hang out at this Mexican restaurant that he always freaking went to. And then conveniently he couldn't make it. And then we're just, sitting there hanging out. And then I'm just like, I knew he was going to do some shit like this. I freaking knew it. And then time comes for us to, like, pay the bill and leave. And the owner, who my boss is friends with, he comes by and he's like, oh no, Dave already took care of it. And I'm like, that son of a bitch.
Amazing.
So, yeah, it was something.
So the question of who pays for the bill falls completely out of the question. Easy.
Yeah, which was so great because the entire time my heart was just racing, and I was like, this is going to be such an awkward conversation if it is one at all, because I personally do not want to let her pay for it. And knowing her now, she's the same way. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I guess we could half it because that's what most people do nowadays. And then the owner came by, said it was already taken care of. And I'm like, okay, that relieves so much anxiety.
Fantastic. So how did that, let's say date, how did that date play out, in the sense of you were afraid of not knowing what to say and how it would work out because you don't have enough time to think about what to say, something very clever and funny. What happened?
It was so awkward. Let me tell you, being someone who has social anxiety, it was so awkward. And I was still in the stage of my anxiety where I was like, anxious eating around people, let alone talking to them. So having to do both, I had a list of conversation topics in my head, and most of them were making fun of my boss or asking her about stuff she does. Okay. So, yeah,
that can work.
From what I can remember, it went real smooth, and she laughed.
Did you have to use those topics?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it worked fine.
It worked great.
Good.
From what I can tell, it worked great.
I mean, so far so good, right?
So far so good. She hasn't told me anything otherwise. So.
So, did you at that point knew that she liked women or not? Because that was one of the things that you mentioned, that like you don't know which way.
Yeah, no, that was one of the first things we talked about over text. Because I was just like I don't remember exactly how it came up, but I remember we were talking about it, and it's not like I straight out asked, like, so whose team do you play for? She just kind of brought up, oh, my ex-girlfriend. And I was like, sweet, I'm in.
Was that on purpose? Do you know?
I like to think it was.
Because, I mean, I can easily see that.
Yeah. Because, I mean, not to be stereotypical, but some lesbians have a look to them. And when I met her, she had very short hair, like, sleeve tattoos. She had the mask on, so I couldn't quite see what her face looked like, but she looked like she liked women. And then obviously the way that I looked, I know that I can come off very feminine, and sometimes you can't tell if someone's bisexual or they're like women or all that other stuff. But I know that whenever I had that conversation with her, I brought up my ex-girlfriends, and then that caused her to bring it up. And it was just like, oh, sweet. This is just working out great.
Which in your case, it was on purpose.
Yes. Mine was absolutely on purpose, because I needed to know, because I know that if I bring it up, if I'm the one to break the ice on it, they'll respond that way too.
Yeah.
So.
Which, I mean, I think it's a clever way to signal whether you're available and or might be interested or not. Like someone saying like, oh, I have a girlfriend or I have a boyfriend. It's a way of saying like, look, I'm already with someone, without saying it. Or you can be like, yeah, I was with my girlfriend or my boyfriend doing this. And that tells the other person, look, I have someone, right? In this case, saying my ex means that I am not mentioning a current one, and I am mentioning the gender. So if you're the same gender, you might know what that could mean.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty subtle way to do it.
It's a pretty subtle, pretty great way to do it, because one of the first things that her and I talked about was that I had a kid, and obviously 2 girls can't do that together. So she obviously knew there was a baby daddy. And I was like, oh yeah, no, we had just broken up, yada, yada. Not just broken up, it was like some months before. And then we had gotten into something else, and I had brought up like, oh yeah, my ex-girlfriend used to do something like that.
Right.
And then that's when we started talking about hers, and it just snowballed from there.
Yeah, I think it's a smooth transition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like saying like, yes, I have a kid, but also know that this is an option.
Yeah.
Did you find that like having a kid was sort of like getting in the way of you dating either her or other people?
No, not really. She was the first person that I dated after I had gotten out of the relationship with his dad.
Yeah.
So she was living in Jacksonville at the time, which is about like 2.5 hours from where I live. So it worked out. Whenever I had my son, she was in Jacksonville anyway. And whenever she would come over, I wouldn't have him.
Okay.
So it worked out.
Perfect. So, okay, so you both have dinner, and the chat actually went well, right? Not like you thought it would.
We had a cute little date, and then we went back and we hung out in the parking lot for a little bit, because I, had a kid, so I wasn't going to bring her back home yet. And then we just talked, and then she drove home, and then it was a lot easier to ask her out after that.
You said you went to a parking lot. Was there a kiss? You said she didn't go to your place. Was there a kiss there, or was it like later you met again for a different date? Nothing happened during that evening. How did that go?
I know for sure after that first time we hugged. Remember that. Yeah, we hugged. Okay. I remember that. I don't think we kissed. I think that was the second time her and I hung out that we kissed.
Okay. So after that, what happened? Did you guys text right away, or how did it go?
Yeah, we were texting off and on her way back home. And then...
on the way?
Yeah, on her way back home. Obviously, it wasn't the entire time because she was driving.
I hope so.
But it was just like little stuff here and there. And then she let me know when she got home. And yeah, after that, we just kind of kept texting. And she was like, I would love to hang out again. Maybe not so work-centered. And I was like, that's a great idea. That's a great idea.
So during the dinner, you kept it work-centered? Like it didn't drift
No, it was
off?
more like let's meet up outside of work, so that way we have longer. Right. It's not suffocating from your boss. Like it's just us in like a public setting.
Yeah.
You're not in your work uniform. We're not there feeling like we have to talk about work.
Yeah. And your boss doesn't have to keep paying for the dinner.
Yeah.
So okay. So afterwards, she said that, and what happened then?
Well, we made a plan for 2 weeks later to go out to a bar. It's like a brewery out in Jacksonville. And she was already there, met up with her. We hung out. We talked. That date was like, I want to say 6 hours. And we
This is
talked
a bar?
the entire time. It was like a brewery.
Like a brewery,
So
okay.
It was kind of like a hipster bar, I guess. They have like a bar with the brewery stuff behind it, and then they have couches. And so we were sat on the couch, like just hours. I swear to God that I think that it was like 6, 7 hours. And we were just talking and laughing the entire time. And we were making fun of each other and we were cracking jokes. And it was so great. And then I remember at the end of that date was when, like, we had kissed. And
during that date.
During the date, we had kissed during that date.
Right.
And then after I had left that date to go home, I just sat in my car, took a deep breath, and just screamed. Because I was like, oh my God, she's into me.
Good. So did you also bring some topics prepared before that date?
No, I didn't.
Why is that?
I was just like, okay, we're going to free ball it. We're going to see what happens.
Okay. What gave you the confidence for that?
I have no idea. I think I was just excited to see her again. So I really didn't think about it until I was already finding parking to go into the actual brewery. And I was just like, as soon as I park, I'm like, holy shit, what the hell are we going to talk about? And then it was surprisingly easy. There were very little like awkward pauses. Like we were continuously talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is just a guess. This is the first time we're talking, so I don't really know you that well. But my guess would be that you had been texting first, and then you met and talked for like over 2 hours, and it went well. And then she was texting you while she was driving. Like most people would actually wait until at least they get home.
Yeah.
And then you kept texting. So my guess would be that by that point you felt comfortable that, okay, with this person, things can actually flow and you could just relax about it.
I think so. Obviously, you still have those anxieties. And before her, I was in a very abusive relationship. So that just kind of fried my mental state. And like, I don't want to say my self-confidence, because I was still somewhat self-confident in myself, but I was just like, okay, well, what if she thinks I'm too much? So let's not get too comfortable too quickly, because I don't want to weird her out.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well, what if I like her, this turns into something, and she just turns out to be an asshole like the last one?
Happens.
So you don't go in feeling absolutely comfortable. So there was still a fence up with when it comes to how comfortable I felt with being myself around her. But after that second date, I think it started to get a little bit better.
I find that many people say like, oh, whenever I talk about my hobbies or I mention my hobbies, it's a turnoff for people, right? And I think that it's often not necessarily the hobby itself, but like you're saying, info dumping. Like you sharing about whatever you love without, or whatever you're interested in, without seeing if the other person is interested or not.
Yeah.
And you mentioning holding back and then waiting until you saw whether it was okay or not. Can you tell me more about that? Like during that first day, did you talk about Lord of the Rings, or did you wait a bit longer? No, big no.
The Lord of the Rings stuff kind of happened, I want to say probably a year and a half into our relationship, where At this point, she had moved in. We were living together. I didn't have as big as a collection as I do now. I had the trilogy, obviously. I had the Silmarillion. I had a few Tolkien books, and I had these Tolkien Pez dispensers and a few other things. And, we would talk about it because she had some Star Wars stuff and she had Lego stuff. And we would talk about, the stuff we're into every now and then. And, gifts, like gift options would come up. And the box set of the History of Middle Earth was one of the big first gifts she got me, because I was like, I really, really want this. And that was kind of the first, I guess, foot I had put in the door to be like, okay, well, let's see if she supports this, because my last relationship did not. He did not like the idea of spending money on my hobbies, right, because he thought that they were silly and asinine. But then my birthday comes around, and that is a birthday bag, and I'm like, holy shit, she bought it for me, and it was like $120, or no, I think the entire set was around $225. Okay. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. And then after that, it was like, we watched the movies together. And a lot of people, some people who don't know me, don't know my content started with the comparing the movies to the book with a little scene, and then me going, oh, did you know X, Y, and Z, either a behind the scenes fact or a lore fact? And I would do that with her.
During the movie.
During the movie. Of course. And when I realized she didn't get fucking annoyed with me, I was like, okay, so it's safe to continue to do this. And so then I did that with the other two movies. And then we, they show the movies now with the live orchestra and whatever. She bought me tickets for the Fellowship one. And then when they came back into theaters, she was like, do you want to go see this? And I was like, fuck yes, I do. It's like 6 hours of Lord of the Rings in the theater. Yeah, absolutely. And then it got to the point where she was asking questions about certain characters. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great.
Is this heaven? Did I die?
Yeah. And now it's just like, she goes to cons with me. She supports my cosplay. She has bought me half of this stuff, and she has printed me out so much Lord of the Rings stuff with her 3D printer now. It's so great. It's so fun having a partner that supports you in your nerddom.
Even if they don't specifically share it.
Yeah, exactly. Because she does not like the Lord of the Rings movies, and I don't blame her, because they can be boring for someone who are not into them. Like, I do not like the Star Wars movies, but I'll watch them because my son and her enjoy them thoroughly.
Right.
So I'll watch them. It's not like I'm going to be complaining the entire way through it. I will ask questions the same way she does, but it's great.
Yeah, I have the same. I'm more into fantasy stuff, like sci-fi. I never got into it. Yeah. So I don't think you need to wait a whole year to start showing people that you're into nerddoms.
No.
But I do think that it's good, not necessarily that you waited so long, but that you didn't info dump straight up.
Oh yeah, no. With stuff like info dumping, being someone with anxiety, you always have to test the waters on it. So it's like, you might bring something up to where whenever they ask, oh, what are you into? My first thing is always Lord of the Rings, fantasy. I really love reading. I really like Tolkien. And her answer was Legos, Star Wars, stuff like that. So it wasn't immediately oh, did you know the Witch King of Angmar, XYZ? So.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned Lord of the Rings fantasy, she mentioned sci-fi, Star Wars, Lego. You didn't think that there was a way into nerd topics?
I didn't think there was a way into nerd topics to where we could get on the same level within the first few dates.
Okay.
Because I, like, obviously Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, they're two very big icons in the nerd community. So I had no idea, like, how deep the Star Wars stuff went to. Like, there's Disney canon, there's Legends, there's before Disney. And I had no idea on all of this until her and I went into a bookstore and she was collecting like the Legends series. And I was like asking questions about, because she was bringing up the Legends, like Leia and Han and their kids. And I was like, wait, Kylo isn't in there? And he's like, no, that's Disney. And I was like, so wait, who's Mara Jade? And then she goes on to explaining that. And so then she's listening to the audiobooks and I'm like, who's that? And so then I find out all of these different characters and then I learn who Thrawn is and it's wild.
Right. Yeah. I do the same and I tell people to do the same as what you were saying. It's like, I'm into this. Just leave it there and see if they take it or not. Right?
Yeah.
Most often it's like people don't get it and we just move on and keep talking about a different topic. Every now and then they'll be like, oh, I'm into something also nerdy, which is something different. And we might share or not, depends. Every now and then I'll find a match and we'll just take it from there and start skyrocketing, right? But it is rare.
Yeah.
Sometimes you will find people who laugh at you for liking what you like.
Absolutely. Or you'll find that they like the same things that you like, but they're on the opposite spectrum of the thought process of the things that you like. So like, say I was single, I would find someone who also liked Lord of the Rings, but vehemently hated Rings of Power. I would be like, okay, this is not going to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you deal with situations where either you find that you don't match in which side of the fandom you're on, or that they think that what you like is silly, or they may laugh, or I don't know what reactions you've experienced. How do you deal with that?
So, comedy. I always take the humor way out because being a woman, obviously, starting an argument with a man isn't exactly the smartest thing to do.
Yeah.
Especially if it's dating, like physically in person, when you meet someone at a bar and they're like, oh, what are you into? And then you start those conversations. So like even now, whenever I deal with people online who are just like, oh, Rings of Power is trash. And I'm like, you're lame. Like you clearly don't have any imagination, or you have the imagination of an earthworm, or you clearly never read the books, like something funny like that. It's never like absolutely serious, not trying to take things personally.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you can think that over there quietly in your padded room, and I'll be over here having a good time.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm guessing in your case, especially online, it's trolls or people actually wanting to be mean. Sometimes it's just like people getting a bit maybe uncomfortable, awkward, being like, oh, like I'm meeting someone who's into childish stuff. Like, what do I do now? So I'm just going to make fun of them and try to get out of it. And It's not healthy either way, but I do the same. I'm like if I say like, yeah, I watch anime. Oh, what's anime? Oh, it's cartoons. Oh, that's so childish. Yeah, ha ha ha. Move on, change topics. I don't care. I've had partners who like, I would usually wake up first and I would just like start watching some anime on my phone, and they'll wake up and be like, what are you doing? Watching cartoons. Okay. And they'll keep sleeping. Right. And it's fine. Or I'll be like, oh, playing video games while they work or whatever. And it's fine. Right. They don't share it. They have no idea why I like it, but they accept it.
Yeah. That was actually one of the first things that my fiance disclosed to me whenever we first started hanging out. Was she's like, I like this thing that I call stupid TV. And I'm like, well, what do you mean stupid TV? And she's like, well, sometimes when my brain needs a break, because she has a very corporate job, whenever my brain needs a break, she watches like, South Park Family Guy, American Dad. And I'm like, oh, I love those shows. I mean, I don't watch them as religiously as she does. Like, she could recite every single South Park episode. She loves South Park.
Yeah.
And there's some that I don't get. And sometimes I just don't want to watch it. And that's okay. Like, she can have that. That's perfectly fine with me. I don't get it, but she can have it.
Yeah, you don't have to share everything, but being with someone who at least accepts what you like and is fine with it, I think that's the bare minimum.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Kaia, thank you so much for this. This has been amazing. Where can people find you?
I'm on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube now. That's been an interesting one. Threads and Blue Sky. All of them are Kaia K with 2 Y's, except for TikTok. TikTok is Kaia K with an S.
Cool. Awesome. I really suggest everybody go check your content out. It's amazing. I'm even now making requests for content on Threads. I know that you noticed it. I was like, oh, I want to find out more about that stuff. So
it's on a list. Don't you worry.
I can imagine.
I love it when people request stuff because sometimes I'm just like, well, what the hell do I record about today?
Yeah. And speaking of requests, to everyone watching, if you have any questions for Kaia, for past guests, or that you want me to ask in the future, leave a comment, send me an email at dm@roadtoday.com or at social media @roadtodate. And maybe I can bring Kaia back or ask future guests or bring past guests back. Kaia, thank you so much for coming, and everybody else, take care. Bye.